In this lesson, we'll be animating our coral to scale up and on to our comp. Okay, so let's come over here to our infographic split and grab a few pieces of coral. Now I want all of this to be healthy coral, so we'll select just those pieces. Make sure you don't accidentally grab any of those other ones. And you may not be able to just grab those, so I'm just going to hit Control-C to copy them, and then we'll come back over here and paste them. Control-V to paste, and we'll drag this forward. Now it's going to take a second to load those in because they're very complex shapes. And if you accidentally grabbed a few extra pieces, you can just select those and hit delete. And make sure you don't delete your background. So I think our background is unlocked right now. I'll go ahead and lock all of those back. And delete those. Okay, so this is what my layers look like at 100%. So they're obviously a little bit too small, and I don't want to move this piece right here, so I'll just move these over. What I want to do is, to save some time, I want to be able to use my animation preset just to scale those up from 0 to 100. So what I'm going to do is we'll use the animation preset to animate them on, then we'll pre-comp them all and scale the pre-comp up. So I'll show you how to do all of that. Let's go ahead and select all of the pieces. We'll turn on our continuously rasterize and our motion blur switch. And let's just kind of zoom in here. And I want these to look like they are growing up from the bottom of the composition, so like they're kind of on the seafloor. So we want to move our anchor points. So I'll just grab that pan behind anchor point tool. And you have to do this one at a time, unfortunately. So we'll just go through our list here on our timeline and move those anchor points to the bottom instead of the middle. That one's already pretty low. And the spike ones will leave the same because they're kind of floating. Just like that. Then maybe let's move these down a little bit just so that horizon line looks a little more straight. And now let's figure out where we want these to kind of start popping on. So I'm going to control scrub. Zoom in a little bit. So right when he starts saying stop the destruction is when I want this to start. So I'll just take all these layers and we'll hit Alt open bracket to trim that. And then we'll just come down through here and use our scale preset. So that's scale, recoil, and we'll just drop that on to these layers. Just dragging those on to all of them. Perfect. So now you can see that looks a little bit better than if we had just pre-comped the whole thing and scaled that up, because you can see they're all growing from a different root. But to make it look even more dynamic, we can offset this a little bit. So I'm just going to come in here and we can just start pulling these over by one frame at a time. And because there's not too much of an order to them, it's going to look very random. So that's just what we want. Great. That looks really good. Okay, so now let's grab all the pieces of coral and we'll pre-comp it so that we can scale it up. So hit Control-Shift-C and we'll call this Stop the Destruction Coral. Go ahead and say OK to that. And then let's scale this composition up So it fills the bottom part. And then we can just move it around until you're happy with the placement. And you may need to go into the comp and arrange things a little bit differently. Now you'll notice this is getting blurry, so we need to come over here and collapse our transformations. Let's go back into the comp and just kind of rearrange it so that everything fits a little bit better. I'll just move these a little bit closer here. Maybe move this one up. Just like that. Great. Let's go back in and move that green rock up just a little bit more. Perfect. So now, whenever we scrub through, these are going to still pop up in the same way, but it's just going to look like it fills that space a little bit better. So really, really easy, especially whenever you have that animation preset already set up, and then you can just, use a little bit of creative pre-comping to really bring that to life. Now, while we're here, I want to go ahead and trim this layer. So I'll just hit Alt, open bracket. And I also want to trim these layers for those destruction comps so that we don't accidentally ever grab those anymore. So I'm going to select them all, hit the U key, and we're just going to crop them where their last keyframe is. So I'll hit Alt N bracket to do that on all of these. And that's just going to keep us from accidentally grabbing it when we don't want to, and also seeing the edge, which is kind of undesirable. Great. Okay, so now that that's all set up, I want to add the next part of the composition, and that's going to be having some little coins kind of drop in here, because the next thing that he's going to be talking about is how you can get a grant to help preserve the coral reefs. So we're going to learn how to do that in our next lesson.